welcome everybody to Stephanie's channel. We are here gathering, all of us, both here, the ones on Earth's side and the ones that are in heaven. Sometimes God will come through, and we never know who wants to come. And if there are some topics you want us to talk about, please write in the description and we will bring it forward. So I'm very pleased to be here with you again. We talk regularly, but I'm very happy doing this with Stephanie and Christal and the ones who wants to come through. I live in Norway, and Stephanie and Christal lives in the US. So what's on your mind today?
What do you think, Christal? You're muted, Christal. You're going to have to keep it on because we're going to ask you questions, unless you have a lot of noise in the background.
Yeah, that's why I muted it. I'm Christal. I'm in Virginia, in the U.S. I'm a regular with and friends with Stephanie and Sissel, and we're just here sharing the God's love of the God that is.
Yeah, and I want to make it clear to everyone that we have a group. Those of us here, we're friends. We can call us the burglars, or the company, or whatever, company of burglars, or whatever. I guess we're burglaring the old world in order to create the new world view. So we do have conversations with those in heaven side throughout the week, because in various ways, I'm not the only one that can communicate with them in various ways in order to work together. So we are, you might say, a group, I don't want to say dimensional, multi-realm group, because it's only a very, very thin veil at this time between heaven and earth, and the new world is going to be the new heaven on earth. And whether you're ready or not is up to you, because times are changing, and the message I consistently get is that God's reached the point where he's fed up and he's ready to, and the earth too. The earth is fed up and they're ready to have a change, because humanity has had long enough to wake up. And some are awake, some are ready to awaken, and some are still dead asleep. And I say dead asleep because there's a reason that we've had all these zombie movies lately, Walking Dead, because
Right.
if you're not understanding the nature of eternity and who you are and the soul, you're kind of like the Walking Dead. You're in the dark pit.
Yeah.
And that's okay, because that's where the children play. And so as the earth changes, and this is the message we've been trying to get across to people for a while, that the earth is going to shrug off a lot of humanity in the coming days, unless the vibration changes dramatically. And it's okay, because we trust on heaven. And you can look up all the stories of people who didn't trust on heaven and then had a near-death experience, and they're like, wow, it turns out that we're not going to die when we die after all. You're not going to die when you die. You're going to end up in heaven where you get a long, happy rest. But it's what happens after that you're going to have to take into consideration, because reincarnation is a reality. It is God's reality. It is God's way of continuing his trust on life, you see, because through the physical reality, we are consistently mixing it up. We're continually recreating. You can call it recreation. We're continually evolving and changing. And evolution doesn't necessarily have to mean that we're becoming more technologically astute. It can mean we're becoming more aware that just to live the simple life is where it's at, to love one another, to live in peace and harmony. And so that's pretty much the intention of those in the circle, both earth side and heaven side, is the new world of peace and harmony, where we can live in harmony with the earth. And so all of you who are looking at global warming and in distress and saying, oh my God, we're going to be the last generation, it's going to destroy all of humanity, and in despair, that isn't helpful. It may be a phase you need to go through, but it's not helpful, because it is the vibration of love, peace, and harmony that is going to protect you, so that you don't end up having to come back and reincarnate on somewhere else where you don't even have vocal cords, and you have to live as a tree or something. I don't know that that's exactly what would happen. I'm giving you an example, but I don't know that that's what would happen. But in the story of the Elohim and the Anunnaki and the other humans on Earth, the origins of humanity on Earth, the souls who came from Nibiru did have to reincarnate in less favorable conditions because they destroyed their own world. But reincarnation is a reality because everybody has to take part in the evolution of life. It is life. The union of the spirit and the physical reality is the core of God's trust on continuing his own identity and life, and knowing himself through the children of the light, which is what you are. You are a child of the light. You are a fragment of the explosion of light that created diversity, individuality, the ability of you to interact with others and with your world. If you were unable to interact with anything, where would you be? So anyway, here we are. That's my thoughts. Anything you guys want to talk about before we hit those on the other side, in heaven's side, and see what they want to say?
I'm good to hear what they got to say.
Yeah, I look forward to hear. Me
Yep.
too.
All right. Let's see who wants to talk from heaven's side, because they've always got things to say. Make me proud, Steph. This is Tobias, because you said that very, very well. And I know you've been reluctant to express yourself so fully to the world because you don't want to set up a vibration of fear, that people would fear that God is going to wipe them off the face of the earth and destroy them. The old story of the end of the world, when the righteous would be taken and the others left behind to suffer on a devastated world, is a little backwards, like most of the interpretations of the Bible, etc. Because the ancient scriptures understood that eventually humanity would be called to task. Eventually, there would come a point at which God would say, essentially, and I'm saying this a little bit facetiously because it's not exactly the way it sounds. There's not a God who stands over you with a lightning rod ready to hurl it at you if you do something wrong and knock you off your perch on the roof. I'm referring to a part in Steph's novel where someone was knocked off the roof by a lightning bolt and everyone wondered what sin he had committed. The God we know is the God of reality. That's it. It is the God of love. It is the God of reality. That is the core reality, and you're never going to get your head around it because your head isn't big enough. It just ain't big enough. And so you can ask yourself, what is it I want? What does I want from life? If I'm stuck in eternal life, what do I want? What do you want? Ask yourself that. What do you want? I'll ask Crystal and Sissel to say what they want.
I want a world where we can gather, be happy, share things, help each other. A world of love.
I want a world not full of greed.
Gives me the tingles.
The capitalism, the greed. It is so much greed, and the stolen energy is greed. Um, the stolen energy is the control of other people. That's it's all stolen energy from God.
Comparison is like the people that are stocking up all the money, and all the food. It's
Yeah.
like they're stealing the energy of the earth.
And they're stealing the energy of the earth. They're stealing the energy of other souls, and they're gonna have to pay all that back.
Right.
They're gonna have to pay it all back. Yeah.
Tobias says, that's well said, Crystal, because that is exactly what's happening. That is exactly what happened. God is saying, okay, you've had time to figure it out, people. And some of you have. And some of you are still clueless. And it's not your fault. Nothing is your fault. It is simply that God energy has expressed itself throughout history, that is, through your story and through everyone's story, in the best way possible to help everyone. And if you cannot trust on the fact that you are your brother's keeper, then you will have to be the one that God keeps away from your brother in order for your brother to be happy. The ancient symbol of God energy is the yin yang symbol. It's been around for a long, long time. And it is a representation of what you call the light and the darkness.
The duality.
The light and the darkness is the ability to understand balance, you see? Mm-hmm. It is the ability to understand that in wholeness, there is both. Right. And they are constantly representing themselves as a duality. There is always a duality. There is you, there is God, and the tree. So that sounds like a trinity, not a duality. And that is true because God is always the third part, you see? God is always the third part. And so you might say in the yin yang symbol, there is the dark and the light, and there is the circle. Don't forget the circle. Don't forget to look at the frame of the picture, people, because the frame is as important as the picture to holding it all together, right? If you cannot understand this, that you exist with your brother in the cradle of God's arms, then you will be one of the ones that will cry and whine and say, why is this happening today? Why is the world suddenly turning so it's cold shoulder on us? Why is it getting cold in certain places and hot in other places? And why is the earth trembling so? Because the earth is going to tremble more and more and more as all the energy, the dark energy that needs to be exposed to the light, is revealed through its own good auspices to come into the light. In other words, all that dark energy under the earth that is trembling and moaning and saying, hey, you guys are playing in a pretty rotten way, is going to gather so much strength that it's going to erupt through the surface of the earth. And you will all say, what the fuck is going on today? Why is this happening? It is because it is a representation of all the dark energy that's inside humanity. And it's going to erupt. And that is how it will work. So, if you are a good vibration on a new world of peace and harmony, what you're going to do today, if you hear this, is say, oh my God, it's time to change. It's time to change because I don't want to represent dark energy anymore. I want to be the one who finds a way to get to the light. And if I have to dig straight up through all that darkness in order to find a little trickle of light, I'm going to do that. Because I don't want to be part of the explosive energy that's going to decimate the beautiful world that we know as Earth. And for those of you who are taken, you'll be taken to heaven, of course, where you'll be happy and you'll get a rest, because that's what heaven is. However, your ability to return to the earth that you trashed will be limited. You will have to reincarnate, because that's the way it goes. You have to reincarnate. But where and when and how, if you're not allowed to go to earth? Think about it, people. Think about the beautiful gem of the universe, the earth on which you were born and on which you will expire and go to heaven. God created heaven in order to give you a rest, so that you didn't have to continue to be so dark, you see? And this is part of the totality of the balance that you know as the yin yang symbol. Because life is a place, heaven is a place of light and beauty and love, in order to balance out the darkness on the earth. When heaven and earth come back together, there will be a nice blend, you see. And people will say, I love you today. I love you. I love the world in which I live. And they will start treating their Mother Earth as if she were a whore, you see. And they can just take from her her innocence and her beauty and throw her on the trash pile when they're done. This is your mother, and God is your father. And the two of them have created this beautiful earth for you to live upon. You might say, sometimes people say Mother Nature, and that is true. It is your nature, you see. It is your nature. By that, I mean, it is not only what you are, but it is the world you see. It belongs to you. It belongs to you because you can see it, you can hear it, you can smell it, you can feel it. You have the ability to taste in a way that I don't. You can pull a carrot out of the ground and taste it in a way that I cannot. I am familiar with this ability because I've had many, many, many lives on earth, and I have continued to rotate from heaven to earth many, many times. When I'm on earth, I can taste that carrot. And when I'm in heaven, I can remember the taste of it. And when the memory begins to fade, it's time to go back to earth, you see. Because earth is the synergy of the father and the mother in order to provide for the cradle of life. The cradle of life exists on earth. You might say it's sort of like being awake and dreaming. When you're asleep, you're not eating, you're not running with your friends and playing, you're not at work bent over papers, you are sleeping, and you live off your memories and your dreams. They're a little bit chaotic, and that's okay, because only through your memories can you access physical reality when you're in heaven. That's it. Through the connection we have through Steph here, and now through others who have trusted upon her and trusted upon themselves in a way that you would say is angelic, because the company of burglars you see are the angels who have come to redeem their energy and take back God's stolen energy. Because you stole it, you see? You stole God's energy when you said, hey, I'm better than you. Mm-hmm. Hey, I'm entitled to have all this money and you should have none. Hey, I can kill you because you're nothing to me. You're nothing to me. You're just in the way, you see? You're in the way of my egotistical desires to have more than you and be better than you. and that is the theft of the gifts God gave to you. Because the gifts God gave to you were to be your brother's keeper, you see? Because without your brother, you are nothing. You are nothing. Imagine that you live in a steel vault, as Steph used to say, and you're banging on the walls and saying, hey, is anybody out there? Is anybody out there? Hey, is anybody out there? And you hear nothing. You hear no response. That's what it would be like to be without your brother, and without your mother, and without your father. We are a family. We are of a family. Humanity is a family. And there is a mother, and there is a father, and there is the children that are created from the loins of the mother through the good auspices of the injection of the spiritual essence from the Father. If you cannot understand that and you cannot trust upon your mother and your father, then who are you? Who are you? Where did you come from? What is your experience? That you were created through spontaneous generation in the way that people say, well, I don't know, I guess I was created at birth, and when I die, it'll all be over. I'll be dead. There'll be nothing. And that is the stupidest thing I ever did hear. Because if when you die, it's all over, then it never happened. It never happened. Because you only exist because God granted you the ability to experience reality as a continual sequence of experiences, you see. And that continual sequence of experience is available to you because of the earth you know, because of the mother. The father might dream of having a child, but he can't do it until he has a mother or that children. So now I will pause and let you talk, and then we'll see if others here have something to say. All right, what do you guys think of what he said? If you even remember, I have a hard time remembering all of it, but it was very direct.
agree. I agree. I think it all is true.
What I remember is that the to start to trust in the mother and father, that we all are the children.
Right.
That is, if we can start there and just believe it to be true, that we are all equal, it is kind of the foundation in what we build the life.
Right.
It was very, very beautiful, Tobias.
Yes.
Very strong.
Yeah, thanks, Tobias.
Yeah.
Crystal, any thoughts before we see if anybody else have inside has? I kind of have to, monitor this to give you guys a chance to talk before I tune into them.
Right now, go ahead and tune in.
Steve would like to speak. I have been following my inclinations for so long that I don't even know that an inclination is an incline, you see? And so you might say I've been walking up the incline for a long time. And I didn't realize it because I thought I was just going where my hunches took me. And the bunches of energy that I had that caused me to keep trusting on some path that I couldn't even see have led me to this point where I can talk to you this way. So let me begin there. I'll preface what I have to say with those thoughts, because those thoughts have led me into a new reality, you see, because I somehow thought that it was all about me. I thought it was all about me, that I had to be the one to save humanity, because nobody else seemed to have a clue what to do. And I've come to see that this old vibration followed me from the times of the Anunnaki. Because God said to me, Steve, although that was not my name in those days, but it's a name that I use here, Steve, somebody has to save humanity from the Anunnaki. Somebody has to do it. And I said, well, not me, God, because what you're asking me to do is way out of my capacity. And God said to me, then I'll help you, my dear, because I will free you from your fear of what I'm asking you to do, because you won't even know why you're doing it. You won't even know why you're doing it. And so you'll make up some story about why you're doing it, and you will save humanity from the Anunnaki. Now, this whole story is contained in the book that we're giving to Steph to publish here shortly. So you'll be able to understand how this came about. But I had no clue, because you see, he removed my fear so I could do it. But the vibration was still there. There was still a vibration after all these years, and I'm talking hundreds of thousands of years, that said to me, Steve, it's your job to save humanity, because I don't know who else has the moxie to do it. And I said, okay, I'll give it my best, and I did. Some of you know that I had many lifetimes of renown. That included John the Baptist, Socrates, Confucius, Marcus Aurelius, and others that were before the time of recorded history as you know it, because much of recorded history has been lost long, long ago. However, I also had to play the demon, you see, and I did that through other lifetimes. And some of you know that in my last lifetime, I was a very persistent, trust on destroying members of humanity, because I was a part of the Nazi Party that was in a high position to do that. And I, again, did not know why I had to play that part, because if I had known why I had to play that part, I don't think I could have made myself play it. When God said to me, Steve, this is your opportunity to leave that old vibration, because you see, once people understand your history, they will come to see that you are just like them. You're just like them. That you will have to endure the truth, because the truth, you see, will enter you. And the truth is that you must balance your own energy as well. You must redeem your energy. And because you saved humanity from the Anunnaki, but you forgot who asked you to, you could not figure out why you would have done such a terrible, horrible thing, because you did something in that lifetime that was forbidden, you see. In order to rid humanity of the Anunnaki, you took on a role that caused you to be hated in the way that people do, because you hated yourself, you see. You hated yourself so much because you violated a very basic trust on the conditions of life that were set forth in the understanding of the human society in which you lived. You had to violate that trust in order to do what I asked you to. And that caused such a conflict inside of you that you never knew how to get balance again, you see. You never knew how to get balance again, because you hated yourself for violating the laws and I might say the fundamental understanding of your own friends and family. And in order to do that, you had to erect a straw man, as we would say. You erect a straw man, and then you have to kill him, you see, over and over and over. And so the straw man you created was one that violated the trust on his own lovely wife and child, you see. And thereafter, he hated that person. And so he kept trying to redeem humanity when he was really trying to redeem himself. What Crystal said earlier before the recording began, that Savior is save you, is true. When you think you're the savior of humanity, you only want to save you from the darkness you knew inside of you. And so I had to save me, you see, because there was darkness inside of me, because I hated myself for what I did. And this is an ancient story that will be revealed to you. However, the important thing of it is this, that sometimes God will call you to do things that will make others hate you. They will hate you. So let me continue with my story of my last lifetime. So God said to me, Steve, it's time you came to understand that everybody's going to hate you for what you do in this lifetime, if they haven't hated you before for what you did in other lifetimes, because I had some bad lifetimes too, where I was pretty gruesome. However, this is going to take the cake, because everybody's going to despise you for what you did. And yet I'm asking you to do it for me. And I said, how can that be? How can that be? And he said, well, you're going to become a part of the trust on the Anunnaki, you see, because the Anunnaki left behind them a trust on them as the creator gods, you see. And many people believed in the creator gods of the Anunnaki, and they trusted on someone who would reward them and make them the golden idol, take them up into their spaceship, where they could live for eternity with a happy heart. And then, of course, they'd kill them. It was just a trick to get humanity to do their bidding. However, humanity, a good portion of them, not all of them, trusted upon. They trusted that if they did exactly what they were told to do, which is mine the gold, they would be taken into heaven and become the Gaia golden idol. So many people still trust on that, and they're still busy mining the gold in order to become the golden idol and to be taken into heaven and live eternally in peace, you see. And the other side of it was that if they didn't work hard and do what the Anunnaki said, they would be thrown into a deep, dark pit and deprived of food and water, where they would die. If they had an injury that made them unable to work for the Anunnaki, they'd be thrown into that pit. So if they had broken something so badly that it couldn't heal in a rapid way, they would throw them in there. If they had a disease that was debilitating to them at the time, they would throw them in there. If they were so stubborn that they refused to do what the Anunnaki said, in they would go. There's a story in the book of a little boy who was only 10 years old, who was taken into the mines to work during the time of the Anunnaki. And he was blinded because of some chemicals that were being used, and he did not have enough experience to know that he had to avoid them. And so they threw him into the pit to die of starvation. And his father was so disturbed by what happened that he became one of the ones that refused to work for the Anunnaki anymore. And he was blown away a few times. When we say blown away, we mean either they kill you on the spot or they throw you into the pit. And so humanity developed a trust on this false god, you see, the god of the Anunnaki, where if you did what you were told, you'd go to heaven and live forever as the golden idol. And if you didn't do what they told you, you'd be thrown into the dark pit of hell, where you would starve. And your bones would remain there for archaeologists to find one day and say, hey, what happened here in this dark pit? Why are all these bones here? And some of them look like they had injuries that might have happened before they were in this pit. So what's going on? And they will figure it out. They will figure it out because of this story of the Anunnaki. However, this became the essence of the story of heaven and hell. Jesus did not teach that. Jesus did not teach that you would be thrown into the dark pit if you didn't do what the Jewish religion told you to. He was a rebel and he said, you don't have to do what they tell you to. Because the Jews at that time were very much in the control of the Pharisees, who were very, very rigid in their attribution of trust on certain rules. You had to do such and such on certain day and such on certain day, and you had to do it a certain way. And Jesus said, the heck with that. Just trust on God the Father, because he is your Father, and he created you, and he will continue to love you no matter what you do. He's not going to throw you into hell. He's just asking you to be your brother's keeper. He's just asking you to love your brother as you love yourself. Because if you love your brother and yourself, you'll be safe, you see. You'll be protected by God's energy because you'll be continually redeeming your energy on balance. You will continually be the trust on that ancient symbol of the yin yang, because you'll trust on what you give, you receive, you see? And this is the essential duality that God created, that everything you give, you shall receive, if you can follow this. And so, in my last time, God said to me, I want you to go back and you're going to be this horrid man who still loves me and does what I ask you to. And I said, how can that be? How can that be? Because you're asking me to be the avenging angel, you see? And so I came back into that life as a Nazi. And I was the one who was in charge of the institution of the system of retribution at Auschwitz, you see? I was the commander of Auschwitz for most of the war. And I was the instrument of God, you see? And I did not want to be. I did not want to be. I wanted to be a servant of God, you see? And in my youth, I trusted on God in that lifetime. I trusted in God and following his commandments, you see? But the old trust on the Anunnaki and heaven and hell got to me, because my parents raised me in the Catholic religion, which is the most abominable trust on hate, you see, that you have ever seen. And it inspired the current version of Christianity, which remains linked to its horrible past, a past of dark energy that came to be because Jesus said, trust on your Father God. And you don't have to do what the Pharisees tell you to. And so the people said, well, we don't have to do what the Pharisees told us to, but we still have to do what the Anunnaki told us to. Because that vibration was still alive inside them, you see? And so they took what Jesus said and tried to translate it into their understanding of what the Anunnaki wanted. And that created the Catholic Church, you see, because they were bent on power over others because they were stealing God's energy in order to control humanity, right? Because everybody wanted to be the golden idol. And so the Pope and the high priests decked themselves out in gold and told the people, you have to do what you're told, or we will destroy you. And so you might say the Catholic Church became the prime prosecutors of the Jews, you see, in World War II, because the Catholic Church tolerated the hate, you see, in order to retain their power over the people. As long as they went along with the Nazis, they could retain their power. And they had a hold on the nation because most of them were Catholic or Christians, you see. And they trusted on the golden idol and the cradle that God created was not even in their contemplation, you see. They didn't trust on reality. And so it became my job to be part of the worst prosecution of the Jews that you ever saw in history. And the Jews are a prosecuted people. They are a persecuted people. And they are persecuted people because they trusted on the Anunnaki, you see. Because the Anunnaki had very, very rigid rules of what humanity had to do in order to survive. And the Jews also trusted upon a very, very rigid set of rules about what you had to do. And they thought of themselves through much of their history as the chosen people because they thought they were going to be the golden idols. You see, that God would favor them all the time because occasionally God did favor them in the way that they worked.
So I got where did I just write it down? When you were talking recovering lost energy through the restoration of the mind. The restoration of the mind is getting your memory back to remember and recognize love and God that is Father God, creator of all the energy that's been stolen from God by humanity in the world. And Jesus understood the lost energy and God's love.
Yes.
In a way that the rest of the world didn't.
He understood it in a way that others may have, but his story is kind of unique in what happened.
Right.
And how it affected the world.
Mm-hmm.
And his was specific to his area where he lived at that time, which was a very Jewish and Roman controlled area, but not yet a Catholic Roman, not yet a Holy Roman Catholic, thing.
Right.
Because of it was before that time. Because of course he was the instrument of the rise of the Catholic Church. They used that against the people.
Right.
All right, let's continue. Let's see. Sorry, Steve, to interrupt you. Steve says, it's okay. There came a time when God said to me, as I said, that you need to redeem your energy, Steve, because you saved the people from the Anunnaki so they could continue to live on Earth, you see, because the Anunnaki would have wiped them all out. Not for you. When they left, they would have just wiped out all of humanity and said, well, we're done with them. We don't need them anymore. So let's get rid of them because we don't want them figuring out how to continue to grow and one day come after us in their spaceships and say, hey, you did this to us. Now we're time to redeem our energy by killing you. So they killed them all. That's the way they had planned it anyway. However, because of what Steve did do, the Anunnaki were so shocked that they just disappeared one day. They just picked up and left. And they could not bear to stay in the solar system, you see? So they left. So that day, you see, I had to be the one who redeemed my energy on the false reality that I had created, because I had created a false reality that said I was hated because of what I did do. That was so bizarre that it caused the Anunnaki to pick up and leave, but it also caused me to violate my trust on the integrity of my own people, you see, who in those days were the Elohim. I violated the trust on some basic understanding that we all had, that we would never become like the Anunnaki. And so I carried this vibration with me throughout all of my history. And I kept trying to redeem my energy by saving humanity. And God said to me, "You got it backwards, honey. You have it backwards because you already saved humanity. And now you have to save them again in a different way." And I said, "Okay." And he said, "I want you to go back to Earth and I want you to be somebody that everybody hates after you die, because they will say, how could he kill all these people today? How could he do that? How could he murder them in cold blood?" Now, I have to say that nobody was damaged that day because everybody that died at Auschwitz went to heaven, you see, like we all do. And they were happy because they got a rest. And they said, wow, this is really nice here. We no longer have to be in that stupid camp, and we also don't have to work for a living. And we don't have to do all the other things you have to do on Earth, because they were like everybody else. A lot of them didn't like living on Earth. Just like a lot of people today that say, God, I'm so miserable. Please help me. Please save me. And so God says, okay, I'll save you. I'll send a lightning bolt that hits you and knocks you off the roof, and you can come to heaven and get a rest. And everybody goes, oh, that poor guy, he got knocked off his roof by a lightning bolt. I wonder what he did to piss God off. When really it was only the answer to your prayer, that you could get a rest. So I brought you to heaven. You're happy. And you got to stay here till you had to go back to your next life. And you said, God, do I really have to go back to Earth again? Like most people here do. And God said, yes, you have to play your part, you see. Because if we don't all play our part in the physical reality, everything would disappear, you see. Everything would disappear because we would forget who we are. We would lose our vibration on love, you see. We would lose our vibration on reality because all we have in heaven is our memories. And where do we create memories? On Earth and in the physical universe. That's where we create our memories that we bring to heaven. And when those memories begin to become stale, like a meal that we have already digested and now we're hungry again, we have to go back to Earth. So all those people who died at Auschwitz were happy because they were in heaven, you see, and they could have a good rest there, and it was like a vacation for humanity. So they were happy, so it wasn't a problem for them. It was just a problem for me and all of the people who trusted on seeing me burn in hell. And I said to myself, well, I did what you told me to, God, and now I'm public enemy number one. So what do I do? What do I do? And why did you make me do that? And God said, I asked you to do that, my son, to wake humanity up. I asked you to help them see that I don't have any chosen people, you see. I didn't choose the Jews as my chosen people, and I didn't choose you. You're all the same. And now the shoe is on the other foot, you see, because the Jews have a holy battle to regain Palestine, you see, in order to restore their supremacy. And this is an old battle. It's not theirs alone. We're not saying that they are some culprits in this story. They simply trusted on the fact that if they did what God told them to, then God would protect them from their enemies, you see? And it never worked. It never worked. It never worked. It never worked, you see? God did not protect the Jews from their enemies because their enemies were their brothers, you see? And so today, people say, well, those Israelis are out of control because they're bombing Gaza to smithereens and they're destroying all the innocent people with all the guilty people. Let me tell you, there are no innocent people. You're not innocent. You're not innocent of the crimes of humanity because you've been there all along. And you often were the very demon you condemn today, you see? You were me, and I was you. Because I am God energy too, and so are you. And all God wants is to balance out his own energy. He just wants to balance out his own energy so everybody can live in peace and harmony. The life on earth grew up together in peace and harmony. The animals and the vegetation came together gradually through the good auspices of God energy to create a synergy that created this beautiful planet. And sometimes there was a lot of violence in the way the earth exhibited its energy, but gradually it began to calm down as the animals and the plant life worked in a trust on peace and harmony. However, when humanity was injected into the earth vibration, something new happened. And humanity began to say, God, we don't need you. We don't need to trust on animal life and plant life working together in harmony and peace because we are like the Anunnaki. We'll just steal from the earth. We'll steal the energy of the animals. We'll steal the energy of the plants, you see, and we'll use it to make ourselves immortal. We'll be immortal because we'll overcome every limitation that you have placed upon us in order to protect the animals and the plants, you see. And up grew the idea, which is new, because in the beginning, all humanity knew that they would go to heaven when they died. They knew they were eternal beings, children of the light, even though they would get so confused by the Anunnaki, who themselves were very confused, you see. They also were children of the light. And so, through this confusion, the balance in the universe became untenable, you see, because everything affects everything else. And so I had to play the part I could play so the Israelis could play the part they're playing today. Because if it had not been for the attempted annihilation of the Jews, they would not have been given a homeland, you see? That would help them to restore their trust on being the chosen people. And of course, other people think they're the chosen people too. It doesn't matter who. I'm just using the Jews as God has used them as an example. Other people think they're the chosen people too. The Catholics think that everyone who refuses to trust on their religion is going to hell or purgatory. The Muslims think that they have the right to destroy anyone who does not obey their rules, because they are the chosen people. So give up your religions, people, because they have done you no good. They have only caused you pain, you see? And so I had to play the part of the demon, because I tried to play the part of the Savior. And so you see, the demon was always in me. The demon was always in me, and I had to save myself. You see, this is my story, but your story does not have to be the same as my story. So, as some people know, when I came back to Earth, you see, I had to die a slow, painful death so I could remember who I was. I was the one that was killing myself over and over and over again, because in every lifetime it seemed I had a horrible demise. Sometimes I was strangled, sometimes I was kicked to death, sometimes I had my head cut off, sometimes I drank poison. But lifetime after lifetime, I had a horrible demise. And I hated it so much, I began to hate humanity. I began to hate humanity, even though it was, I thought, my job to save humanity, which meant I began to hate myself. I began to hate myself with a passion because I hated humanity. And if you hate your brother, you will hate yourself. And so I did not know what to do in this lifetime, and I still consider it my lifetime because I'm still Stephen P. Jobs. I had a job to do, and God whispered in my ear, and He said, "You have another job to do, dear Steve." And I said, "Okay, what is it this time, God?" And I was pretty weary of all these jobs that I had to do that were taking me out and making me have to pay the price for humanity. Because even when I tried to be a good man, as you would understand it, and I did try to be a good man in my last lifetime, I tried to be a good man. I just got caught up in the machinery because that's the way God wanted it. That's the way God wants it. Because He comes through all of us, and He comes to all of us and whispers in our ear and said, "If you trust on me, will you do this for me, honey?" And very few people are listening. Very few people are listening because their minds are still filled with the memories of the dark mines in which the Anunnaki would send them day after day after day until they died at a young age of overwork and lack of sunshine and good nutrition, you see? And they just treated them like machinery that you would use to get what you wanted and take it from God, you see, and your mother, because the Anunnaki were stealing from the earth what they could, because they trusted on being the chosen people, you see, who could take what they wanted and destroy everyone else. So I'm not here to tell you that you are better or worse because you think you are the chosen people. You're pretty much the run of the mill, you might say. If you think you're the chosen people, so does most of the people on earth today. So give it up, I say. Give it up. You're not the chosen people. You are your brother's keeper. And so today, I have come to see that love is the only reality. Love is the only reality. And if you condemn someone because of what they did do, then you don't know who you are. You don't know who you are because you're probably condemning them because of what's wrong with you, not what's wrong with them, you see? And what's wrong with you can be so ingrained in your own soul history that you don't even know it. I had no clue that I had already saved humanity from the Anunnaki. I had no clue because all I knew was the story I had created because I was too afraid to do what God asked to. And you are creating stories every day to hide the reality that God is the only reality. God is love, and God is the only reality you will ever know. However, you can live in the dark, you see, and think that your shadows are the only reality and ignore the light. So I today have begun to see that I have gradually redeemed my energy and given back to God what I took from God. And what I took from God, you see, was my trust on the voice that whispered in my ear. And it continued to whispered in my ear in this lifetime from the time I was a boy. Because I knew what I had to do. I knew what I had to do. I had to help create the avenue for all of you to connect again. That's what the computer or digital age was about. It was about reconnection, you see, for all of humanity, because too many people had lost their ability to communicate directly with God, you see. And so we had to revive that ability. And God said to me, well, in your last life, Steve, you had to play the game, the role of the ghoul. And now in this life, I'm going to let you start a new school of thought. And I thought it would be an easy gig, and it turned out to be very, very painful. Because I came back into a world that revived all my fears. That somehow they hated me. They hated me, you see. And I had to do everything I could to overcome that distrust of humanity and still do my job, you see. And it's only through the love of those who could remember me in love that they felt for me because they trusted on God energy that I have been saved, you see. You have saved me because I could not save me until I could see the smiling faces of those who say, what a beautiful day today. What a beautiful day today. God will lead the way. God will lead the way. I trust on God to lead the way. And then I remembered that I had always been the one who said, I'll trust on God today to lead the way, because I was so burdened by my guilt, you see, for what I thought I had done. And I was burdened in this life by my guilt as well for what I thought I had done in my last lifetime. And it is only through the love of God, as expressed through his children who have joined their energy with his, that I have come to see that I'm not so bad. I'm just like you. I'm just like you. I'm just someone who has to balance their energy in order to help God to bring the world back to peace and harmony. So balance your own energy. Trust on the fact that you have an ancient history, people. You have an ancient history of the under the Anunnaki, because that's where most of you were born, you see. That's where most of the people on Earth got their soul identity, was under the thumb of the Anunnaki and through the love of the Elohim. Because the Elohim already had a soul identity before they came to Earth. They had lots of experience, you see. And they tried to help the other humans who were being created to serve the Anunnaki, to understand the love of God above and the love for each other. But it all got turned wonky because of the machinations of the Anunnaki and those who trusted on them. You see, I'm not saying that the Elohim were the perfect version of love, you see, because they had their issues also within them, just like each of you do. However, they trusted on God. to whisper in their ear. And yet when God whispered in my ear, I turned away and I said, I can't do that today, God. I can't do that. And he said, that's okay, because I'll help you to do it today. I'll wipe your memory of what I told you so that you can do what I told you to, but you'll have to figure out a story to cover it up, you see. And that's what you've all done. You've all covered up with your stories what I asked you to do. I asked you to grow. I asked you to come to know that I am the one reality, that I am love, you see. I asked you to come to understand that the answer to every question is always the same. It is always, I am the way. I am the way. Because the way is the way you play. And God wants it that way. Because God is the master architect of reality. And if you think that you have ever done anything that would cause God to throw you into the pits of hell, then you are still in the clutches of the Anunnaki. The Anunnaki themselves have grown since those days because they came to see that they did not have their thumb or their finger on the trust on being the most powerful race in the universe. They came to see they're very vulnerable, you see. Let me explain this to you. If people on Earth continue to use their technology to destroy the Earth, they will set up a vibration that is so powerful that it will rock the heavens, you see? And it will destroy the Anunnaki. Because the Anunnaki have no protection from their children. They do not have the ability in their fragile spaceships to withstand the blast of dark energy that would result from the destruction of the one more planet in the solar system, because already 2 other planets in the solar system have been destroyed through greed and arrogance. And like you say, Crystal, and said before we began or after, the greed of humanity is the seed of their destruction, you see. So love me, and I will love you. And give me your trust that I too can find peace and harmony with my own family. And my own family, as you know, are the ones who were created with me in order to be a trust on loving God, loving each other, and loving physical reality. Now I will let you be because I've talked for quite a while. However, I have a lot to say. I have a lot to say to humanity. And if you ignore me, that's your choice. But maybe it's because you have too much to say and you're afraid to say it. I'm not afraid to say it. And the ladies in here are not afraid to speak their truth. The ladies in here are not afraid to speak in a way that is genuine and true. If you are not capable of standing up to them and saying, well, this is what I think is true, this is how I see it, then you will be thrown into the dark pit where you will die of starvation, you see? Because the dark pit is your own lack of trust on yourself, love for yourself and love for others. Because only through sharing your stories will you begin to pull out the threads that will help you to understand the trends of the dark energy and the light, you see. It was only as I told my story that I finally dared to tell my story of what happened at the time of the Anunnaki. That others said, well, that explains it. That explains it. We never could figure out why the Anunnaki left, you see, because they didn't have my experience and they couldn't put it together. And I never thought that it was something I had done that had caused the Anunnaki to leave. And here's why. Because I felt so much guilt over what I did that I didn't even want to think about it. I could never put the two things together, that what I had done was the cause of the Anunnaki leaving. I could never put it together, even though I could remember it, because in those days we could remember different lifetimes. I was blown away that day. So it's not like I could come back and tell others unless it was in heaven. And I never wanted to talk about it, even in heaven, because I thought I had violated such a fundamental rule of my community that I could never be accepted by them again if I told them. And I know there are some of you out there who think the same. You're afraid to tell what you did because you'll be punished, you see. Even the ones who can connect with heaven telepathically, like Steph does, are so confused that they're afraid to let others know what they can do because they will be condemned, you see. But that day is over. That day is over because the ones who are open to heaven and can hear God whispering in their ear and talk to us as old friends and neighbors are the ones that are saving the day, not you. Not you who mock them. You're not the saviors, you see, of your own reality. You are the fools. If you mock the women in this group, you are the fools. If you come and talk to them instead of mocking them and say, hey, I have a story to tell, they will say, hey, thanks for sharing, because that helps us to get a new point of view. That helps us to understand you a little bit more. That helps us to trust on you, that you're willing to trust on us and listen to us. Listen to us and let us listen to you, because it's too late for those of you who turn a cold shoulder to us. It's too late, and you will bite the dust again and again, as you say, because you have not cleaned out the rust on your own vehicle. Your own vehicle is your body, you see, and your physical reality. This is your trust on God, that God will continue to save the world. God will find a way to preserve the earth for those who trust on its beauty and on the wonder of having a physical form to experience it, you see? Now, does anyone have any questions of me before I turn over the mic to someone else?
We have such a long story, and of course I have many questions, but I know I will get to know more when I read the book. Because
Yeah, it's
I
an
think
interesting story.
yeah, and I think it is very important to know of the story so we can get a new view on what is happening today.
Right. And so we can forgive each other. And of course, we know that forgive is to be here for giving and not for getting. It's not
Exactly.
necessarily to tell somebody, oh, I forgive you no matter how you treated me so rotten.
No,
It's more to give to them your attention and compassion and say, hey, I've done something like that too.
yeah, to listen to the stories we have and
To receive, yeah.
Yeah, God had said through Angela, retrieve, receive me, to retrieve, receive the blessings from me. Yeah, that was beautiful. Excellent conversation.
All right. And I want to reiterate for everybody out there, Crystal has someone in her family that has a very deep connection. But so many people who open up to connections are treated as if they're mentally ill. They are treated as if it's a problem instead of a solution. It isn't a problem, it's a solution, but they themselves may be so terrified by it because they have been trained by probably you, the way you train your own children, the way you talk about us or others, that they've been trained to not trust on being able to connect with God, which is ridiculous. It's like God died 2,000 years ago with Jesus or something because he can't talk to anybody. That's ridiculous. It's absolutely ridiculous. And other souls can talk to you too. However, if you are terrified of them, or they themselves, sometimes those who have not yet been able to acknowledge their own death, so to speak, and go to heaven, to the light, they may still be too tied to the earth. In their frustration, may say things that are disturbing to you. You just tell them to go to the light. Just as I can't remember who, maybe it was God, said to me, the answer when that happens to you is to not be afraid because they're just like you. Mm-hmm. Sometimes when you just get so frustrated and angry, you say things that just because you want other people to be frustrated and angry with you. The answer is to say someone's looking for you to help you, because that will open them up. Because there's always someone willing to help you. There's always someone in the spirit realm willing to help those who have died and are a little bit earthbound. Someone is looking for you to help you, that will open them up to receive it. Whereas otherwise they might brush it away and say, hey, because I have so much I trusted on dying and going to dust. And now here I am and I don't know what's going on. They don't want to listen to those who are trying to help them. But if you open up them and say, hey, I heard someone's looking for you to help you because they want help, that will open them up to receiving the visitors, their guides who are trying to help them go to the light. And for the rest who are hearing God speak, sometimes it can be very, very confusing because you're channeling it through your belief structure. I know occasionally people have said to me, well, it's just your filter that you're hearing. And maybe, I don't know, but I think my filter is pretty open.
It's definitely open.
Because it makes a lot of sense. To me, it's logical. It makes sense. And a lot of, I'll call it the bullshit, and not only in religion, but in the spiritual, so-called spiritual community, is just another religion.
Right.
The only reality is God. The only reality is love. And when we gather together to share our thoughts openly and don't think that we're smarter than anybody else, because I certainly don't think I'm smarter than anybody else. Yes, I was known as being very intelligent in my lifetime here. However, that's my particular part to play. It doesn't mean, I guess, that you're better than anyone. And I have heard wisdom from the mouths of 3-year-olds.
Oh, yes.
Hear the message and forget about the messenger. If the message makes sense to you, take the message and take it from wherever it comes. If you're staring at a tree and you get a message, it doesn't mean you're smarter than the tree. So that's my thoughts.
Yeah, I remember when I had those voices coming into me, and I had no one to go and talk to, so I just kept him and closed down again. So it is always inside.
I had a very hard time when Steve came to me 8.5 years ago, nearly 8.5. And I was like, oh my God, I can't do this. But I was already had enough experience, you might say, and enough confidence in myself to say, well, it just is what it is. It doesn't matter.
Yeah.
And I remember the day he asked me, he said, well, Steph, would you rather be sane and unhappy or crazy and happy? And I said, well, it's just a word. I'll take happy. It's just what other people think. It has nothing to do with me. Happiness is where it's at. And if you're happy, what do you care what other people think? Are you going to be unhappy just to please them?
Good question.
Well, let's see if anybody on the other side has anything more to add since we've been at it a bit, but let's see. Robert would like to be heard. As you know, I was Steph's son in this lifetime who took my own life when I was 23 years old. So you might say, Robin and I have saved the day because we can both say, best thing ever. Best thing ever. I came to heaven and God said, welcome to you. And I said, thanks, God, for helping me to do what I had to do. Because I heard a little voice whispering to me. It said, get a gun and put it to your head and pull the trigger. And I said, I can't do that. I can't do that. My mother would be devastated. And the little voice said, I'll help you. I'll help you. And so I did. Best thing ever. Because my life was done, you see. I was done with what I needed to do there. I needed to come here so I could play my part here. And God is the master architect. He is the one who figures it out and says, well, I'll help you to play your part. And everybody else may condemn you, but your mother won't condemn you. She'll just say, well, that's what he did today. And I already knew he wouldn't be around long. So it wasn't such a surprise. And I'd already lost a baby, you see, at birth. I was devastated. So I learned that I could survive anything. And so his mother was already prepared, you see. His mother was already prepared for his death when God whispered in his ear and said, I'll help you, dear. And so, as I understand it, I came to heaven in order to be part of the circle of love and to reunite with my own father, who is Thomas, because in my lifetime on earth, my mother was connected with Thomas, you see. And so my soul identity is connected to my mother and Thomas, who are part of a trilogy of divided energy. And so I was happy to be in heaven. I was happy to be connected with Tobias, who was my father in my last lifetime. I was very happy to be here, and God said, this is where you need to be, son. Because in the future, your mother's going to need you. She's going to come to you and say, hey, can you help me today? And you will say, you betcha, honey. Because you and your mother have had many, many, many relationships in other lifetimes. And so you are equal in your energy. You are equal. She's not more important to you because she was your mother than because in your last lifetime she was your sister. And in an earlier lifetime, she was your niece. It is the trust on love that is the key here. That when the families come back together, it doesn't matter what arrangement they come into. It is the love between them that keeps them happy, you see? And so I'm going to turn the mic over to Robin because he has something to say. It wasn't just an accident I mentioned him. Okay, Robin is here, and he says, I agree that my time had come. And God was whispering in my ear, and I said, oh, God, I ain't going to do that. God ain't going to do that. What are all my fans going to say? They're all going to run away, and they'll take all my movies off the shelf, and they'll say, turned out he fooled us all. He trying to make us all laugh. And in the end, he was just the tool of the devil, you see, because he killed himself. And so he'll have to go rot in hell, you see. And we can't watch the movies of a demon, you see. And God said, oh, forget it, Robin, stop being so damn dramatic, and just do it and get it over with. And I said, okay, but you better know the way because I have no idea how this is going to end. I have no idea how this is going to end. And it's ended up kind of cool, you see? Because after I died, a lot of people came to me and said, hey, Robin, we think you're pretty cool. Even if you killed yourself, would you come and be the tool of our ability to show everybody else how important we are. And I said, sure, I can do that. So I would go and they would communicate with me, and then they'd tell everybody, hey, I can talk to Robin. And that is how important I am. And I got kind of burned out on that after a while. I got kind of burned out on it after a while. It was fun. And I came back into the circle of love because you see, my energy is very close to all of theirs. And I also am part of the group of burglars. We're going to steal back all that energy that you took from God, you see, spread it around like Robin Hood. Oh my God. So you can call me Robin Hood from now on, and I will be your best friend, you see. So I'll steal all the gold from the aristocracy, and I will help heal the earth of its mendacity, which is, of course, its trust that it's just a body that will fall to dust, that it was spontaneously created at birth, its consciousness, and the consciousness will disintegrate when the body does. Tuck that and tuck away the secret that I'm going to tell you. And the secret is that you too are a child of God, and that you too will become the ones who God will see opening to him, and he will whisper in your ear. And he will say, doesn't matter what other people say. It doesn't matter what other people say. Just listen to me, honey, and do what I say. And you'll see how it all comes together in the end. You'll see that they may mock you today, and tomorrow they'll raise a statue to you, but that's okay because you don't need any of those statues raised to you. You just need other people to say, hey, if you can do it, I can do it too. If you're not afraid, I'm not afraid either. If you're not afraid of those voices that come to you and say, hey, I'm so and so, then why am I afraid of talking to God? Energy. Why am I afraid of talking to the person next to me? Because the next person next to me, you see, is a part of God energy. Why am I afraid of telling them my story? Why can't I say, hey, my name is Robin, and I took my own life, just like Robert said? Why can't I say that to you? Are you going to condemn me too? And if I can say it to you from here, why can't you say it to each other on earth? Why can't you say, my name is so and so, and I had the worst life ever because my husband beat me, and here I am at 63, and he died finally, and I'm free. But I'm afraid to tell you that I shot him in the back. You see, when I said to him, if you don't kill yourself soon, I guess I might have to kill you first. So he died of a heart attack, you see, because I sent him the message that he better let me be. And I got away with the crime of the century because nobody knew it was me. Nobody knew that I was the one who shot him in the back when I said to him, you are the complete lack of love, you see. You are the one who is torturing me. And I didn't realize I was torturing myself because I had set it all up in order to pretend I was a victim. There are no victims. There are those who have their cover stories, you see. And I had a cover story. He just died of a heart attack. It didn't have anything to do with me.
Right.
And so you'll come to see that nobody is innocent and nobody is guilty. We're just all trying to figure out how to redeem our energy that we already stole from God, give it back to him. So just open up and tell your story, and your cover story will fall apart. That's okay, because you don't need it anyway, because God loves you just the way you are, and he already knows the truth, And so you're not going to lose anything as far as God goes. And the only thing you have is the ability to gain the trust on the ones who matter, you see, and the ones who matter are the ones who will listen to you. They're the ones that matter to you. So thank you for listening to me, and I'll be around because I have a new point of view that's causing me to pivot around and see things from a different perspective. That's allowing me to come back into connection with God energy and with you, each of you, in a way that will say, hey, I'm Robin Hood, and I'm here to not hoodwink you anymore. I'm here to be honest and genuine about my life and my life history, which also had a lot of thievery. So let us be free of the old dark energy and find the light together and restore the earth to the paradise it was meant to be by God, you see. Thank you, Robin.
Thank you.
All right. Well, we've gone a long time. Do anybody of you? Well, we've only gone about an hour and a half, but we had about an hour of conversation between us before we started recording. So it's a long time to sit here. Any last thoughts from either of you or anything you really want to say that would help
No,
people?
I will digest as usual.
Mhm.
There is a lot of new perspectives that has arisen in me just through talking with you and the heaven side. So thank you.
All right. Well, thank both of you. And to the audience, to those who are listening, opening up to listen, you're the ones that matter because you're listening. It doesn't matter if you listen to us or you listen to your neighbor when they really want to talk and it may seem a little strange to you. Take the time and listen and say, love is always the answer. Love is always the answer.
Oh yes.
That is the one
Well,
reality.
here today and tomorrow.
Mm.
Yeah. And everything, you can still heal the past in today
Yes.
because it's today where you can do something. Today is the place where you can actually make a difference.
Yes.
Not in yesterday, not in tomorrow, but today. And
never-
that difference will continue to grow.
Mhm.
All right. Thank you, people, for listening, for tuning in. And thank you, Sissel and Crystal, for being here, and Robin and Robert and Tobias and Steve.
Yes.
We'll see y'all next week.
Thank you. See y'all then.
Yeah. Bye, everybody.
Bye. Love y'all.
Bye, guys.